Today we're going to be talking about breaking into iOS and a few other things. I'll first want to start off with Bryce. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how did you get into iOS development?
Yeah, of course. I've had quite a journey into iOS. I first started Xcode in 2017, and I was, learned UI kit at the time, but I built a few projects throughout college, which went okay, but never got anything quite to the App Store like I did after graduation. And then, kind of next journey in my iOS development path is I built an Apple Watch app called Stamina Bar. I did the research and development, drew the idea on a whiteboard, and eventually built an MVP, put it to the App Store, let people kind of give feedback. And then for about the past year, just over a year, I've been iterating it. And during the time I was building Stamina Bar, I was looking for my first iOS development job. And in May 2023, I started at Insurance Leaders Marsh McLennan Agency as an iOS developer. In that role, I'm a part of a software team called Engaged. So we're, big company, but we work as a software team of about 30 people, some developers and client services, but we work as a software team in a large company.
Yeah. And how did you go from that process of like, so you built an app, right? Or maybe even a few, and you started going down the path of like the job search and trying to land a job. How did that process happen?
Yeah, so like I said, I started iOS really just learning about it in 2017,
Mm.
and I was always passionate about it, but never, maybe a bit imposter syndrome, maybe just not applying. But I realized like about one or two jobs in my career that, I really, when it comes down to it, I really love iOS development. So I thought, okay, I know I want to go for an iOS development job. And to do that, I had to just build a project. I started Stamina Bar from a literal blank project because I wanted to see, like, I knew a bit about Swift already. And to get the job, I knew that I had to build a good project. So I'm
Yeah.
telling you, I started with a blank
Yeah.
project, didn't know what I could build with it, but I stuck with it every day, just kind of building something. And then eventually I got to a point where, okay, I have an idea of what I want to build now. So let's run with that. And yeah, there was a couple of projects that when you're building your own project, you may see something on GitHub of a project that you kind of pull in and learn
Mm.
from. So that's kind of other projects I got myself involved in, but really it was just about building one app and really
Mm.
doing the whole software development lifecycle was really the theme behind that, not just building one app because you could do that for multiple apps, but my approach was to do the full software development lifecycle
Mm.
on one app, and that did it.
Dang. All right. So once you had the app built, how did you find the how was the job search for you?
Hmm.
Was it
uh,
easy? Did you did you have like
yeah.
people coming for you?
I reflect back and I realize how ruthless I was in the job search, and it's the same way, the same like ruthlessness and passion that you have to have for building your portfolio and making sure that your LinkedIn
Mm.
and everything is polished. Um, Again, I was at a startup, which was a really great experience, but as things happen with startups, you can be there one day and the next day you're not. So I found myself in that situation, and I was at a point where like I didn't have to have a job the next day, but it was important for me to as pretty much as quickly as possible get another job. So I think having that fire helped me to like, okay, I really need to day in. I need to spend I mean, hours. Like, I was spending hours making sure that my resume was best written as can be. Throw it in the chat GPT as my bullet points, conveying the right
Yeah.
information. And then you have to balance updating your resume with working on your project. You got to make sure that you're
Mhm.
posting, what's new about it on LinkedIn, Twitter, and making sure like GitHub, any if they want to see it, that's polished. So that's two parts of it. So you've got your resume writing, your portfolio projects, and then on top of that, you have to apply.
Yeah.
And I think it was hard because there's in its seasons there's lots of jobs, and in its seasons there's not as many. But
Mhm.
I think I was at a point where there were quite a lot of jobs, and you have to like looking back, you can really pick and choose what's best for you, but I think you have to be quick when job opportunities come, like making sure your alerts are on, and
Mhm.
then when the opportunity comes, making sure you have the best resume you have forward to send as early as possible.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. From what I seen, like being at the right place at the right time and also being prepared, like having your resume and like the technical skills, that's like the bread and butter that will land you like an iOS job for sure. Like,
Hmm. Yeah, and it took multiple tries. There were some interviews I went into that went good and eventually kind of broke through, but I think and it's something that I had people in my close circle telling me is that when the right one comes, it'll just happen, and it'll
yeah.
kind of come quick. And that um, was the situation with my job. I was prepared for the interview, and everything seemed to align what I wanted in the
Mhm.
company and what they were looking for. So I do think when you're prepared and making sure that your portfolio, your technical skills are there, and then another part is making sure your LinkedIn is best suited for a recruiter to find you. And once you're able to unlock and connect all those, and then the right opportunity comes, I think, pretty natural.
Yeah. Yeah, 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 for sure. What advice would you have for any devs who are out there right now trying to break in to iOS?
Hmm. Similar to how I was saying, is it's impressive to see someone go through the full software development lifecycle on an app, and I think that's important because it shows really all the skills you need as a developer. Like, you're able to,
Mhm.
even if it's an app that's already built, you can totally take a clone of an app, add a couple features, release it. Or even some of those apps don't even have to necessarily be released. Those can be your portfolio project apps, but
Mhm.
showing that you can take requirements, because that's how it is in the real world. You're working with company, or like in the, I guess we'll call it the real world, but in a job,
Yeah.
um, you're not, you're kind of just the developer. Like, you have a
Yeah.
support system of getting, these are the client services team, these are your product, all kind of mixing in the requirements. But I think to get an iOS developer job, it's important to show that you could, like, you understand or you can work with all of those processes. So yeah, I'm trying to say, you got to follow the
Mhm.
full software development lifecycle, and that
Mhm.
sometimes means taking an app from your passion, just taking an app from scratch and building an MVP. Doesn't have to have all the features you want, but build something that is really, I'd say, it's good enough to get on the App Store, and then work on showing people, getting that to your friends, family,
Mhm.
people that you just may meet out and about. See what they think about the app, because um, what's really important in executing and releasing an app and seeing other people use it is that it releases your own biases of how you think your software should work.
Yeah.
And when you're able to have other people use it, get their feedback, incorporate what's right and what's realistic. You don't have to obviously put every feature that people ask because sometimes it's not realistic. But going through that process of building something and then it's really follow agile methodologies. It's you build something, you release working software, take the changes, and then you can build on that literally for forever. That's maintainable, and that's so impressive when you can do that once really good, or kind of do that multiple times, and maybe you don't have like an idea that's just oh you think is world breaking, but I do think Stamina Bar has like a lot of impact that it can make, and
Mm.
even if it doesn't, that's okay. And but learning that you feel like you can do it in other parts, and that's what hiring managers see. That's okay. He can come in on the Marsh McLennan team and kind of revive our app. So that's it's important.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. I always kind of viewed it as like it's all like a feedback loop, like your project, your resume, your LinkedIn,
Hmm.
based on how your performance is when you are like applying for jobs. Those are kind of like hints that those need to be improved and worked on.
Totally. Yep.
And then even when you do get the interview, like your performance on the interviews itself is like it kind of lets you know it's a pointer, right?
That's
Because
exactly right. Yep.
maybe maybe you do bad in the interview, but it doesn't mean that it's over, right? It doesn't mean you'll never be a developer, but it just tells
Yep.
you have some work to do.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. And the last thing I wanted to touch on before we wrap up the live stream is what advice would you have for developers for their first day? Let's say they land a role. What's some advice for the first day?
Yeah. That's a great question. Well, I think for more or less, depending where you go, you're gonna have all of your onboarding things, and I know that's kind of like in one category, but I'm thinking you may mean in terms of like iOS development specifically, and I can kind of go into
Yeah.
both, but um, you should really get involved. Like first day, if we're talking onboarding stuff, like try to get involved in some clubs. Like at the company I'm at, we have Toastmasters, which is kind of like a public speaking club, and there's also employee resources groups. So um, there's groups for runners and people of different diversity backgrounds, and that's good. Like making sure that you're being social is super important. But as a developer, what you should really do is it's like what I would do, or if I was a hiring manager, and what I'd want from my developer is to try and set meetings with people who you're going to be working with or who knows the code better than you. And even if it's just for the first 2 weeks, like try to meet with them 30 minutes as much as possible. Because if you have that set calendar where you don't have to have the pressure of, okay, I need to go ask questions, it's just, we may talk for 30 minutes, we may talk for 15 minutes, but the time is there. And every day you can pretty much show what you learned in the code, and you can also ask questions. And um, I think that helps a developer coming on to get comfortable with asking questions, because that is a normal thing to do. And when you're good at it, it makes everyone's life easier because you understand the work better, you get it done faster. And then bringing in other people, it's like you love working. Maybe I say
Yeah.
that, but it's nice working with other people. And when other people are helping other people, they, build good interactions. So try to
Yeah.
schedule time with people you're going to be working with and ask questions.
Yeah, like you should definitely be asking questions because it'll come back and bite you. Like if you don't understand somebody or not somebody, but something, and you just go along with it, then you might find yourself in a position where you're asked to deliver something you have no idea what you have to do, and now you're gonna look dumb because you have to ask questions that they assumed you knew because you didn't say anything. And one advice I would have is understand that it might be underwhelming or not underwhelming, overwhelming the first couple days because you're gonna have a lot thrown at you. Like you're gonna see probably a huge code base, you, probably the biggest code base you've ever seen.
Yep.
Um, and for example, like for my job, it was kind of funny because I couldn't even like I started on a Monday. I couldn't work until that Wednesday because well, not that I couldn't work, but the laptop that they had for me, I just couldn't access it because like the password for it was being sent in the mail, company policy, and and it got lost or something, and I couldn't access the laptop, so that was a whole fiasco. And even though I couldn't do that, I still had to like onboard and learn things. So just knowing or accepting that it was probably going to be overwhelming definitely helped me a lot.
I agree. And I think that also ties into why say asking questions or setting up a meeting where you can ask questions and it's not like, okay, I need to kind of go. It's like it's just there. That happened to me. I got in first day and I was like, well, it was good that I kind of found some other projects that were bigger than I've ever seen before, but also advice to developers, just like clone a huge, not a huge project, but clone a project that is just like, wow. I think it's important to see that there are um, repos out there that are huge, but in due time, um, you can clean them up and get familiar with huge code bases. But yeah, that happened to me.
Mhm.
But that's okay
Yeah.
though. Yeah.
So I kind of wanted to reflect on because you came back you came on the show like 6 months ago, right? Around that time.
Yeah, it was
And
technically 8 months, but yeah, six around
oh
8 months. Yeah, it was
oh
like May. It
oh
was like
really?
May.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah. I didn't I have my dates a little messed up. But given
close
that,
enough.
I kind of wanted to reflect how it's been. Like, how's the 6 months or 8 months at the job? How has that experience been, and yeah, how have you liked this?
I've liked it a lot because it it's you have to like remind yourself this is kind of a dream that I wanted. I remember kind of starting off even before I like really had the belief I could be an iOS developer. I was always passionate about it. And then as you know, when I was going through the job search, it's like you want to be an iOS developer. Here it is. And I think about when I first came onto the job because it was a huge code base, and I remember thinking, this is gonna be tough." But I still had the belief. I had a good team around me, and early on, one of the first things I had to do was build a search feature, and that totally revamped our app because it's dead smack there. You use our app and you can't miss it, and it's a great utility to our app.
Mm.
And it was requested by someone on our client advisory board. So some of our clients that we work with are like, your app needs this basically, and I understood why because it's it's kind of like having a dictionary of pages you can view through, and then within those pages, there's multiple pages you can see, and uh, without it, like the search feature makes the app a whole lot better. But what was really daunting at first was a huge code base that I had to get familiar with, and one of the skills that I knew a little bit about but hadn't done too much was working with like REST APIs, that type of
Mhm.
stuff. And that was like kind of the first thing I had to do. After there was like a few like little on like quick fixes that I was able to get, but like the search feature was something I was working on maybe like a month in, and it it took like we got it done in a timely manner, but it was hard because it was a lot of a learning process, and we have it was like across multiple platforms. So our team is iOS, and then we have Android, and then we have web. So we were building this
Um,
feature for all three, and my job was to do it for the iOS part. So it was like I had to like really work hard and make sure I was asking the right questions and using
yeah.
all the resources and we have our what was nice is we have our own internal chat GPT tool. It's called like Lin AI, which is basically the company's chat GPT. And that definitely helped me because like I said, I was coming into a new code base, uh, pretty much first developer job, and it's kind of having to build something not unrealistic, but it was definitely
Mm.
hard. And
Yeah.
so yeah, I was able to, first off, got the search feature done. And like before I even go to that, like the search feature, there was like this one bug I fixed early on and probably throughout the search that caused our app to crash. Like user would try to log in and then app would crash. And that was tough. So that was
Yeah.
a nice thing to fix. And like I said, I can go into each more
Mm.
things that I've kind of major projects I've
Yeah.
worked on, but
What
it
what do you think throughout that time was the biggest lesson you learned since you
uh
started?
wow, the biggest lesson, um man, there's so many. I think the biggest lesson one is realizing that as an iOS developer, and especially in my role, but in general as an iOS developer, people use and rely on your app. So like your app being really good or really bad affects people's day. So
Yeah.
to build something that people like and want to use, you have to put in the time and you have to work hard, but you don't have to work like unrealistically hard, like kind of like what do they call it, like the hustle culture.
The
Like
hustle bros.
yeah, you definitely need to put in your
120 hours.
yeah, like no, I'm not saying because that's not
No.
yeah. But I think it's just um and something that uh, yeah, it's really just about putting in your due diligence, and that's something that I've had to come to learn to appreciate, and seeing other people like just like wow, they are really in Xcode, or they are really like seeing other people's
Mm.
GitHub, how active they are. It's just like there's levels to it, and of course you're not gonna come on first month or whatever in iOS development and even know so much about Xcode that you can spend like just straight doing stuff. But as you like do iOS development stuff day in, day out, 5 days a week, you have your side projects 6 or 7 times a week, you really build like just a fundamental how to do things quickly, how to build features quickly, how to debug things. And that, like I said, that's just the biggest lesson I learned because I
Yeah.
came in and like I said, I knew a lot, but I also, you realize you put in a hard day shift every day, but you can't work, like you said. And I'm not saying that I did this either, but just having to realize you have to work hard every day and making sure that you're resting every day so you can come back and do it in a continuous
That's
cycle.
true.
Hmm.
Yeah. That that takes some it's like some learning, or I don't know what it is, but that's something I realized is you really have to know when it's time to take a break. Like, cause you do have to like work hard and put in the time, but sometimes it could be maybe like later in the day and you'd be like, oh, I could really implement this. It could be quick, but in reality, it's sometimes best to just rest and wake up early. Like, well, at least for me, I like to wake up like in the morning and then just get to coding.
Yep, agreed. Hmm.
If,
And in that lesson, it's like you're saying, you may have already worked good shift at work, and then especially with remote work being more prevalent nowadays. It may be like 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, and you're like, oh, actually, I can add this new thing, and then that becomes something where you're doing things late at night. Maybe you're prone to making errors, et cetera, et cetera. Like it is better to, you know,
Um,
do your due diligence, and that's not also to say that you can't put in like good time, like
yeah.
outside, but you know, and even another reflection is like in the agile methodologies, one of their 12 manifestos is being able to do work consistently forever, basically. And if you're working the 120-hour, you know, grind, bros, it's not, but yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, it's not really sustainable.
Hmm.
For me, I think one of the biggest lessons I learned was be flexible.
Hmm.
Because with my previous job, like I went in, or my first iOS gig, I went in, and I actually had to learn some web development
Hmm.
part of the role because we had a lot of web stuff embedded in the app, so I had to do that, and that really taught me a lesson. Like, because at first I was like, because I had spent all this time working on Swift and iOS, and that was like what I was comfortable with, but
Hmm.
kind of getting out of that comfort zone reminded me that like we're not just like iOS developers. And eventually you're a developer, so you should be able to kind of work with any technology. And I would caveat that, or I would add a caveat to that, that at the beginning you shouldn't do that. Like you shouldn't just jump from iOS to web to uh like Android or something like that. You should like stick to one, but as you progress and as you like are comfortable with iOS or any other framework or anything like that, then you can kind of branch out and learn different things.
I 100% agree with you.
Yeah. So what are you looking forward to? Because now we're 2024 is coming. So as a developer, as an iOS developer, are you looking forward to Vision Pro, or is there anything else you're excited about?
Of course, yeah, that's what first came to mind when you're thinking like, oh, what am I
Yeah.
looking for? Definitely Vision Pro. I think it's gonna be. I think it'll be exciting. I'm curious how. Um, so you, for example, you have like I'm curious about how integrated it'll be, especially working with MacBooks, because I think where I'll find the most value out of Vision Pro is having it as an extension of my Mac. And like I'm curious if it's like kind of stuck to just your one laptop or similar to AirPods. Like I can switch my AirPods to, this computer to my phone really easily to my work computer. So I'm curious to really test out Vision Pro on kind of everything I have, and um, even building something simple. I think there's uh, I guess like the word I'm looking for is like realistic opportunities to build stamina bar into Vision Pro, but I think if I'm able to get my hands on one early, I definitely want to
Mm.
like use it as an extension of my Mac, and then I'm sure I'll build. If its stamina bar can't go on there early on, I'll definitely want to build some type of
Yeah.
game or just early on get something to the Vision Pro app store.
Will you be purchasing it
Yeah, if
on
I'm able
release? Are
to.
you looking at?
I mean, yeah, I've got. I don't know how it's gonna work, but
Yeah.
I'm on all the newsletters, and
Oh,
yeah, if it's something where I'm gonna
yeah.
have to like fly to New York to get it, that's like
I, I I don't think so. Right?
but
Because I mean, isn't everything like online now, just pre-order and all that?
yeah, yeah, maybe so. If it's smooth and they're not, uh, but yeah, I'm gonna try it. I'm definitely gonna.
Cool.
I have the plan to.
Yeah. Or or maybe they will do that, but maybe they'll do that for like the initial release, just to kind of add some nostalgia. Because people used to line up for like iPhone stuff, right, and Apple stuff.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So that be. I don't know if I'll be getting it. I really want to see how the market accepts it, or yeah, like what happens.
Yeah. I think it'll be fun. I think it's going to be really good for games because I had an Oculus
Mhm.
and there's a couple, I don't really play it much, but I know there's some really good games on there. And seeing how Apple is partnering with Unity and how a lot of really good games are built in Unity, I'm hoping that
Mhm.
those games in Unity work really well on Vision Pro. And yeah, I would love to see some of the games that are on
Yeah.
Oculus and Apple Vision Pro. That'd be good.
Dang, yeah. Apple's they're aiming for what is it called? Ready Player One.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
yeah, they really are.
They really are.
I was gonna also just say with other than being excited about Vision Pro for 2024, something that I really found interesting was like Apple started to announce like they have an entrepreneur camp and then they have App Store App Best Awards. And I know it's pretty early for me to even try, but that is something I just like tried for anyway. And I think I learned a lot just kind of watching that from the scenes. And of course, it didn't go through, which is a-okay first year, but
Mhm.
really excited also to continue to just day in, day out use Xcode job and to continue to build
Yeah.
stamina bar.
Wait, how does that work with the Apple Award thing? Do you have to like submit your app for it, or?
Yeah, I think um, I'm not sure exactly how the Apple Awards go, but I know they
Mhm.
pick, and the category I'd go for is like best Apple Watch app. But there's probably something that you apply for, but it may just be kind of like Apple is picking
Mhm.
their stuff. Um, but there's the one that won Apple Watch. He's pretty active indie developer on Twitter or X, however you want to call it nowadays.
Yeah.
But he built Smart Gem, I believe that's the Apple Watch name, and it's like it's good. And I look at like inspiration from apps like that, and I'm like,
Yeah.
Stamina Bar, I feel like has potential to be designed and people like it as well.
Mhm. And well, I was gonna ask for, but I think you kind of alluded to it that at the current job you don't have, or are you working on any? Do you get to work on Apple Watch products, or is it just
No,
iOS?
it's more iOS. There's maybe slight potential for watchOS development, but definitely what the
Mhm.
business needs is iOS.
All right.
Hmm.
Well, I think we'll wrap it up here. Thank you again for coming on the show, and thank you for the live stream. That was pretty dope. Where can the people find you, and where can they get Stamina Bar?
Yeah. I Stamina Bar is free on App Store, so you can go from your iPhone or Apple Watch specifically, type in Stamina Bar. If you download it from your Apple Watch, it'll automatically just show up. And then if you download from your iPhone, it's going to go directly to your Apple Watch. And yeah, it's a free app. And then I'm pretty much most active on LinkedIn. You can just find me at Bryce Ellis, iOS developer, and that'll pop up.
Thank you guys for tuning into an episode of the iOS Dev Podcast. I'll see you guys next time. Peace.